watch these hearings. The presenters, any of the presenters that are presenting, you can certainly leave after you present if you want to. Everyone is welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but don't feel bad if you got to get up and go, because that's what a lot of people in my past have done. So anytime anybody wants to go, just get up and walk out. Right, you're all set? Yeah. All right, call to order.
Jim Vasile,
Present.
Andy Dennison,
Present.
Lydia Patty Ruffini. Here. Chris Peter,
Here.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Present.
Bob Shay,
Here.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Mark Strong,
Here.
Heidi Nightingale. Present. Elaine Daly,
Here.
Tricia Kerr,
Here.
Christina Clarko,
Here.
Michael Didio is excused, Brian Muldrow,
Here.
David Gould.
Here. Okay, can we all stand for the pledge, please? After the pledge, we have a moment of prayer. Lou Vasile, father of Cayuga County Security Guard, Joe Vasile. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. You see. Okay, if anybody's seen this agenda, it's quite an extensive agenda, so we're gonna get right to it. There is no public hearing today, so we'll start off with presentations. There is 5 of them. Steve is first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Thank you and good evening. Thank you for putting this presentation on your busy night on the local solid waste management plan on tonight's agenda. An overview of the nearly complete draft plan will be presented by planner Evan Tuttle, who joined our department almost 1 year ago. In May of 2022, Evan was immediately tasked with finalizing solid waste management plan as one of his early focus areas. As you will see, the plan update is nearly complete. Tonight's presentation will review the overall plan and outline where neighboring counties are currently. A key question for legislators as the plan is finalized is to consider the degree to which the county's involvement in solid waste programs and services will remain the same or change. To that end, at the close of the presentation, the last slides will be seeking feedback on what legislative committee or ad hoc committee we should work with in finalizing the plan's recommendations. With that, I will hand over the podium to Evan Tuttle for the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for the introduction, Steve. It's my pleasure to be presenting an update on this plan to the county legislature. Before I begin the presentation, I'll answer a question a lot of you might be asking: what is a local solid waste management plan? So a local solid waste management plan accomplishes 3 main things. 1, it evaluates the solid waste management practices that are currently in place. 2, it evaluates the alternative programs and services that are available for future programming. And 3, it establishes an implementation plan for the next 10-year planning period. The main goal of any local solid waste management plan is to reduce the amount of solid waste that ends up in a landfill through the use of reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, or any other materials management methods. We'll start off with an agenda for the night for the presentation. So first, I'll be providing an introduction and background on local solid waste management planning in the state. And then I'll portray what solid waste management activities and programs are present within the county currently. After that, I will compare how other central New York counties' solid waste management activities compare. Then I will present the alternative recommendations included in the draft local solid waste management plan. And finally, I will address the next steps needed to be taken to complete the planning process. And at the end, there will be times for questions and comments. So the New York State adopted its current solid waste management plan in 2010. The text box on your right shows the title page of the state's plan, that being Beyond Waste to Sustainable Materials Management Strategy for New York State. You can see the visual portrays the solid waste management hierarchy, putting reduction, reuse, recycling, composting, energy recovery all above landfilling. One of the main goals identified in the state's plan is that they're targeting a waste generation rate of 0.6 pounds per person per day by 2030. For context, Cayuga County's current waste generation rate is 4.6 pounds per person per day, based on a waste stream analysis that we conducted. Developing a local solid waste management plan will help us identify ways in which to reduce that generation rate. The state's plan also identified the three main groups we'll need to collaborate with to reach its goals. One of those groups includes local governments or planning units. And I'm going to talk about the role of planning units. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has identified Cayuga County, along with all other New York State counties, as a mandated planning unit. So this means that Cayuga County must provide a singular local solid waste management plan on behalf of all the municipalities within the county. Planning units must provide a local solid waste management plan for the reasons laid out on the text box on the right side of the screen. Local solid waste management plans provide a resource toolkit via the implementation plan on meeting state waste reduction goals. The plan also fulfills a requirement for solid waste management facilities serving the county or municipalities within. Per state regulations, solid waste management facilities are prohibited from accepting waste from a municipality that is not included in a department-approved local solid waste management plan. The plan also provides an outline of the current waste management system in the inventory of the plan and allows us to examine future potential operations. So we've been in development of the plan, and I'll present a update of our project schedule. So we're currently finalizing phase 3 of the plan. Previously, we completed phase 1 being an inventory analysis, and phase 2 a waste stream analysis. Phase 3 involves the determination of future programming for the next 10-year planning period. So far, we've prepared a list of potential program recommendations that have the ability to either maintain or improve our current system. Going forward, we need guidance and approval from the county legislature in selecting the program alternatives to include in our implementation plan. Phase 4, which is the DEC review and approval, will follow the completion of phase 3. So the next few slides, I'll give you a glimpse of the information that we gathered in our inventory analysis. So this slide shows the solid waste management programs that are administered by the county. In the text box on the left side of your screen, you can see that the county provides recycling collection events and education and outreach materials. Recycling collection events are provided annually with the exception of the SHARPS program, which is an ongoing drop-off program for medical wastes. Education and outreach materials are provided on the county webpage. Text box on the right side of the screen shows both the waste and recycling laws that have been enacted by the county, most notably the 1990 recycling and source separation law. The text box also shows past agricultural waste programs such as Clean Sweep New York, as well as identifies the presence of a regional anaerobic digester. So this slide shows the extent of which Cayuga County provides services to its residents. The following slide will show the extent to which the municipalities within the county provide services to their residents on top of these. The text box on the left side of your screen shows the recycling collection events that Cayuga County municipalities reported holding on a year-to-year basis. It also shows the municipalities that offer organic waste management programs to their residents. The middle text box shows both the municipalities that offer curbside recycling as well as drop-off recycling collection services to their residents. The text box on the right shows which municipalities have implemented incentive-based pricing programs, such as pay-as-you-throw, to discourage waste generation. It also shows which municipalities offer yard waste collection, either through curbside collection or drop-off collection. The past two slides have examined the programmatic infrastructure of the county's solid waste management system. And the next slide will look into the physical infrastructure. So on the left side of your screen, you can see the 8 transfer stations that are currently in operation within the county. All but the City of Auburn transfer station only permit residents of their respective municipalities to utilize the facility. And the Auburn transfer station only permits non-city residents to drop off garbage rather than recycling. Text box on the right side of your screen shows the 2 recycling centers and 2 composting centers in the county. These facilities are also only open to the residents of their respective municipalities. Also listed again is the Cayuga Regional Digester, which plays a significant role in the management of organic wastes. To provide a more visual representation of the county's solid waste management system, I provided a map on the following slide. So on this map, you'll see 4 different colors. The municipalities colored in green are those that provide residents with both drop-off services and curbside collection services. The municipalities colored in red show those that only provide residents with curbside collection services. The municipalities colored in yellow show those that only provide residents with a drop-off location. And finally, the municipalities colored in gray show those that do not provide any waste collection services to their residents. Also on the map, you'll see the locations of all solid waste management facilities identified on the last slide. The main takeaways from this map are that, as you can see, there's a large portion of Cayuga County residents who are not receiving waste and recycling services. We have also noticed that the majority of calls that we receive asking about from residents regarding what to do with certain waste materials comes from mainly those locations. So now that we've examined what Cayuga County's solid waste management system looks like, I'll compare it to other central New York counties. So this slide is meant to portray how solid waste management systems can vary due to the capacity at which each county has to implement their services. Cayuga County resides on the minimal involvement side of the scale. I'm the sole staff member who oversees all solid waste and recycling programs for the county, but I also have other roles for the planning department. So it's really just part-time for me. Cortland and Madison counties are in the middle of the scale. And just to bring it back, their waste generation rates range from 4 to 6 pounds per person per day. So it does, regardless of the capacity, everybody is struggling with the waste generation rates. Both of these programs implement similar services to ours, but on top of that, they operate their own solid waste facilities. Both of these counties have several department staff working on their programs in addition to the facility staff. And you'll see Tompkins County is on the right side of the scale, and they exemplify an extensive county involvement program. They provide services for many different types of waste materials and operate their own facilities. But they have a 14-person department that oversees these operations in addition to the facility staff. So I'd like you guys to keep this in mind when thinking about alternatives being presented in this presentation. I'd like you to think about where you want or expect Cayuga County to exist on this scale going forward. So before I present the list of alternative program recommendations, I'll be explaining how we put the list together. The DEC requires that planning units consider program alternatives for each of the categories listed out in the text box on the right side of the screen. While the DEC does not expect each planning unit to be able to implement programs for each of the categories, they do expect us to be able to provide an explanation as to why we are unable to do so. It's been shown that the DEC will approve a local solid waste management plan that explains how certain program alternatives are not feasible simply due to costs and resource constraints. The scale of magnitude on the bottom of the screen is intended to visually portray how the program alternatives are grouped in this presentation. They range from requiring little costs or resources to implement with small capacity programs to requiring high costs and sizable amounts of resources with large capacity programs. Many of the program alternatives included in this presentation and in our plan were based on the EPA's resource tool titled Managing and Transforming Waste Streams. That resource tool identified the varying levels of local authority required to implement each program. I will now begin going through the program alternatives, beginning with what we've identified as our essential needs. We received resident feedback through both the completion of surveys, of which we received 500 responses, and regularly taking phone calls during our inventory phase of development. The main feedback we received was that our current solid waste management system does not serve all residents within the county, and we have identified various ways to expand the reach of our services. Municipality feedback was also received through the use of surveys, of which we received a response from all 33 municipalities, and phone calls with town supervisors, village mayors, and solid waste facility managers. A portion of the survey was intended for municipalities to highlight the main factors that limit their solid waste management activities, and we have identified ways in which to help alleviate some of those issues. On the bottom of the screen, you will see that we have identified essential needs from our inventory analysis, which includes our evaluation of current programs and policies in place. We were able to identify certain programs and policies that should be enhanced to meet current needs. Now that we have discussed the county's essential needs, I'll move into varying levels of program capacity examples. Cayuga County currently operates with a small capacity program. However, we have included some additional small capacity alternatives for consideration in the plan that can enhance the existing program. For example, we think we can enhance our recyclable recovery ability through the expansion of our existing recycling programs. Another example is that we can begin cooperatively working with neighboring counties to both enhance our solid waste management activities, as well as explore new ways to improve regional markets for recyclable material. The next slide continues with more small capacity programs. Another way in which we can enhance our solid waste management system with little to no additional costs or labor requirements is by improving our enforcement mechanisms. Our mandated recycling law has outdated language which allows residents and businesses within the county to stray from the adopted recycling requirements. We can also help our municipalities implement deconstruction language to encourage the redistribution of materials before buildings or structures are demolished to decrease the amount of demolition debris being landfilled. One aspect that we should also be focusing on as we examine how to best improve our existing solid waste management system is education and outreach. Since our education and outreach program started in the 90s, it has become less active. We have proposed improving our website, creating a social media presence, and expanding our resource materials to revamp this aspect of our services. So this concludes the list of small capacity programs in consideration in the local solid waste management plan. I'll move on to the medium capacity programs. So these types of programming alternatives are exemplary of what counties such as Cortland and Madison County have the capacity to implement. These are the ways in which we can enhance our current solid waste management system when we also increase our staff and funding capacities. To enhance our reuse initiatives, we could establish drop-off locations for reusable items. To enhance our organics recovery initiatives, we could start an opt-in program for households and institutions to receive on-site composting equipment. We'll continue with more medium capacity programming on this slide. This slide shows 3 ways in which we can regulate activity among private waste hauling companies. To reiterate, these programs would require more staff time and capacity than currently exists in our solid waste management system. Through enforcement, we can require hauling companies to provide recycling service to be offered to county residents. Through data collection and evaluation, we can require that hauling companies provide us with the annual reports of collection. Through licensing, we can require that hauling companies obtain license to operate within the county. So this concludes the list of medium capacity programs. I'll now be moving on to the large capacity programming. On the next 2 slides, you'll see examples of program alternatives that can enhance our current solid waste management system if we also enhance our staffing and funding capacity significantly. The capacity requirements of these program alternatives is fitting to plating units such as Tompkins County with a double-digit staff in addition to their facility staff. Projects that would require improvements in staffing or funding capacities often involve the development or expansion of solid waste facilities. Two prime examples of this include the establishment or expansion of drop-off locations for both recycled and compostable materials. Two more examples of program alternative, they require more staffing and funding to improve and expand solid waste facilities, include the development of a materials recovery facility within the county, as well as the development of a transfer station network open to residents and businesses within the county. So this concludes the list of large capacity programming alternatives that we have considered in the draft plan. And now I'll be talking about the next steps needed to continue the planning process. In order to complete the development of the local solid waste in a timely manner, we must follow the next steps outlined on this slide. First and foremost, we need to work with the appropriate committee or working group to identify the selected program alternatives to include in the implementation plan. We are seeking the legislature's guidance to provide us with the appropriate group to work on this with, and we hope to have this complete by April, May, or May of this year. Next, we will need to provide the DEC with an initial draft document for review of completeness. We will also be circulating this draft document to local agencies such as the county legislature. We'd like to have this complete by June or July of this year. Then we can begin the 45-day public comment period, during which we will hold at least one public meeting. We're planning to have this complete by July or August of this year. We will need to work with the county legislature once again on the development and approval of a resolution that approves the contents of the final draft submission to the DEC. We will work on that after the public comment period is completed, hopefully no later than September. And finally, once all else is complete, we'll submit the final draft to the DEC as well as all other necessary materials for their review and approval. We hope to submit all materials by October so that we can receive a response and an approval from the DEC by the start of 2024. So that concludes my presentation. I can take any questions or comments at this time.
Yes.
Andy?
I'm just curious, how did you go from, or how did you come up with the 0.6 number when it's 4.6 now? How are we going to achieve that in less than 10 years?
Right, so the 0.6 number was, the state came up with that number. That's the state's average. The 4.6 is the county's average from our waste stream analysis. What I found, how I got that number was we took the amount of waste estimated that was generated within the county of the year 2020 and divided it by the amount of people and the amount of days.
I guess my point is, how are we going to make 4 disappear?
Right. So through the program alternatives that we're considering in the plan, we find that we can reduce our waste generation that ends up in a landfill.
Ready?
When you showed us the map and there was probably half of the map that was grayed out with no municipal services, I'm assuming then that those services are fee-based for residents, number one. And then if so, how is that waste being factored into the 4.6?
Right. So you're saying that in those areas,
Must be a fee for services if the municipalities don't take care of it.
right? So in those instances,
Private haulers.
residents are typically just hiring their own private hauling companies.
Right.
So I still am able to get that data. I examined data from all the landfills in the area, and they are required to compile the data on where their waste is coming from.
Okay.
So that's how I found out an estimate of the waste generation rate for the county.
And one follow-up with those, fee for service private haulers. Is there a recycling requirement, do you know of? So that waste from those areas is at least being separated out or no?
So I mentioned the 1990 recycling law,
Right.
source separation law. So it does in that law state that the recycling or those private hauling companies, they do have to require recycling services
Okay.
only for wastes that are destined to the Auburn landfill, which is now closed. So it needs to be, that law needs to be updated to fit modern needs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you.
You said that there were 500 responses to your survey. Who was surveyed and how many?
I'll try to answer this the best I can. I was not here when the survey was put out, but the survey, the residential survey was sent out to, I'm not quite sure how it was sent out, but I know we got 500 responses and we got a response from a resident in all municipalities except for, I believe, the village of Cato.
So they were
Steve.
sent to all residents in Cayuga County?
Yes.
I believe they were.
Responses. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tricia.
Thank you, Evan, for your presentation and on this. You outlined a huge spectrum of different things that we could do as a county. And as we move forward with whatever group is charged with this task of the next steps of looking at these things, is there consideration for the economics behind these measures in terms of staffing that would be needed, cost benefit analysis, things like that?
Yes, that's something that we're hoping to iron out in these meetings with the working group. That is something that the DEC is requiring us to include in the plan.
Great, thank you.
Another follow-up that Tricia just prompted me on. The working group timelines, one, for instance, is April 23, which is next month. Is that realistic? Because you mentioned that we need to get partners on board and
We don't need to, so the contents of the plan does not have to be very specific in the weeds of it. It's just outlining what our program is going to look like for the next 10 years. So we wouldn't have to have everything ironed out in those meetings. It's just to determine what kind of capacity we're going to include in our program.
One more quick thing, Mr. Chairman. On one of the slides, you used the word require quite a bit. Require, most people's garbage hauling and town dump permits and everything have gone up dramatically to start with. So, we need to keep in mind, we can't just keep throwing it on the taxpayer, whether you like it or not. One of the reasons why upstate New York's landfills are full is because of the massive truck flow from New York City coming up and filling our landfills. So are we supposed to put it on these people's backs because of that? So why don't we talk to the governor about helping out, figure out what to do with people's garbage when they're using our landfills and filling them up on us? Because when you start using the word require, that means that company that you're requiring is going to pass that expense on to somebody else. Guess who that is? Everybody in Cayuga County. So is our population going up or going down? I'll keep preaching that till the day I'm gone.
I appreciate that point. And I just want to point out that the state did just release a draft solid waste management plan, if you're interested in looking at what they're doing to help with the recycling markets.
It's a little late. They've already filled our landfills.
Jim.
So to speak to what Andy said, a lot of those municipalities on the map that were gray made the decision over the past 10, 15, and 20 years to go private because it was less expensive to contract that out to private and not have the government run garbage pickup. A lot of the communities have done away with that. And most of the ones up in District 1 that I'm aware of the collectors have both regular trash and recycled trash bins. And they probably can do it more efficiently and more effectively and at less cost. And most of them do it at less cost. And municipalities did away with those because it was going to go in the backs of the taxpayers. It couldn't go up and up. And especially when Auburn's landfill closed, it was making it more challenging. So the comment.
Anyone else? Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. Okay, next is our County Operations Officer, Shireen. Yes, go ahead.
Is there any way, we have a lot of people here looking for the privilege of the floor that maybe we can skip the order a little bit and go to the privilege of the floor?
Sure, I can.
Have them sit through 4 presentations?
Yep, absolutely. I can do it. Yeah. All right, we have 3 privileges of the floor. First one will be, Brian, did you get that straight?
Yes.
You want it? Okay, go ahead.
I'm somebody in my district, but I think it's my current district, so it does apply, but Dominic Gambini, how you pronounce your name? All right, from Lansing Street, correct?
Correct.
Dominic, just so you know, and everybody, 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic Gambiani, and I'm a resident of Cayuga County. I live here in Auburn. I was one of several who were involved in deconstructing the Auburn Denny's location. Our work was featured in the Citizen on January 30th, 2023, and was extremely well received by the small business community. Several of us are here to speak in support of not only the solid waste management plan, but specifically Section 5, which includes several paragraphs on deconstruction in the county. I spent 2 months attempting to reach the owner of the Denny's, and once I finally had someone return my calls, emails, and even handwritten letters, I was notified I had 3 days to empty Denny's of its contents. In total, I helped a dozen local organizations and restaurants deconstruct and reuse everything from the switch plates on the walls to the $50,000 Ansel grease fire containment system. All aspects of the community showed up, from people on Facebook looking for high chairs to the school district who came for heating equipment, chairs, and tables. All these salvaged items were slated for the dump, but I was able to get people these materials just in time. And here I do have a photo from stage right at Auburn Public Theater, which benefited heavily from this endeavor. They're utilizing their new chairs and stage right from Denny's. Deconstruction prevents important reusable goods from being the victim of a wrecking ball, where they are then rendered useless. So many in this Auburn community were able to benefit from this type of work. If we had deconstruction programs in place in this county, many more could have been helped, and we could have stripped Denny's down to the studs. We simply needed more time and government support. Section 5 supports deconstruction throughout the county, encouraging and fostering conditions for municipalities to then implement ordinances or reuse programs. We all think of recycling when it comes to waste reduction, and continuing to support recycling efforts in this plan is extremely important. I don't wish to take away from recycling spotlight. I do wish to stress, however, the importance of including Section 5's deconstruction language in any solid waste plan that moves forward. Deconstruction is a new frontier when it comes to waste reduction, and this county has so many that could benefit from deconstruction programs: schools, libraries, restaurants, theaters, just to name a few. One of the strongest examples of smart waste management this county could set would be to include Section 5 in the final solid waste plan for Cayuga County. Thank you.
Very good job. Thank you very much. Next is Bob. I think his guest has the same.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce Rebecca Ruggles from Ledyard, who wants her 3 minutes after Dominic.
Hi, ma'am. How are you today?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak again in support of the section of the solid waste plan that addresses deconstruction. I'm Rebecca Ruggles, I live in Ledyard, and I'm here as a resident who benefited enormously from being able to
funded that, and it's right for friends. Before I start, I would like to say a big thank you to the Healing Cayuga team for funding Nick's Ride. They've given us approximately $300,000, saved many lives. Monica Salvage, the director, Matt Russo, the community engagement facilitator, Corinna Noel is the epidemiologist. Wally Myers had his boots on the ground training people with Narcan and getting it all over the city where people could save lives with that. Wally was instrumental, him and Joel, before Nick's Ride was even Nick's Ride, out in the community, trying to get people into rehab, people that OD'd at the hospital. I was at the house dealing with their families, giving them support. Wally's family, his 2 daughters, his youngest Layla struggled with bullying. She got beat up pretty bad because of that event. Wally decided to create a safe place, LJ's, safe place where kids 13 to 17 can go and leave their baggage at the door. There's no judgment there. The only thing that we ask them is to respect the space and each other in it. I have seen Layla making schedules with events, movie nights on Fridays, and she has matured and grown in just the few weeks that it has been open. The other youth that I witnessed there and have become friends with also, they treat each other nicely, and they all have something they have issues. They have anxiety, all kinds of stuff that Wally and Layla are helping them with. So we're trying to give them a voice. We are looking for funding. And I'm asking for our youth because they don't have their voice yet. And I would like you guys to come on a Friday night, have a movie, have a slice of pizza, see what we're all about. And I would also like you to rethink your position on tabling the request for funding for LGS. Wally's paying the rent, I'm buying the pizza, the board is getting paint, we're doing it ourselves, we're struggling. And we would really appreciate it if maybe you guys would come, see what we're all about, and leave your baggage at the door, and maybe we could learn something from the youth of this community. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Wally, thanks. Okay, we'll go back to presentations. Shireen. She's here somewhere, I know.
She's right here.
Oh. Our new county our operations office, not new, been about a year now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. So there is a resolution on the agenda. It's page 12, and it relates to the corporate compliance plan. And with that being said, part of the resolution is the amendment to the Cayuga County Corporate Compliance Plan, which includes some annual required training. So we're going to try to cover both of them at the same time, maybe, if that's okay. So just to start out with introducing you to the corporate compliance plan, and everybody here is getting the annual training, not just the legislators. So the legislators, you did receive a written plan with your agenda, so you had some time to review it prior to today. Just go through the plan a little bit for the training. So just to start out and give you some information, is in processing Medicare, Medicaid, and third-party payer claims relative to mental health and public health services, We, the county, are committed to preventing and reducing the potential for fraud and abuse. This compliance plan assists reducing the risk of these potentials. It establishes an effective way for auditing and reporting and enhances our ability to self-correct and self-report any errors. So I do want to give you a little bit more background with the compliance plan for Cayuga County. In 2010, a resolution adopted individual plans for 4 departments: Health Department, Human Services, the Nursing Home, and Mental Health. A few years later, an external legal review was conducted of our plan and recommendations were provided. One recommendation was to have a centralized approach to the compliance efforts. This resulted later in the legislature adopting one countywide corporate compliance plan, and that was in 2019. The countywide plan would oversee all compliance activities conducted by all the covered departments. So instead of individual plans, there was one. So today in 2023, while we're reviewing and updating policies and other existing plans for the county, we included, of course, the corporate compliance plan. What did we update? Well, the reference to the 2 covered departments versus the 4. We also reviewed the makeup of the compliance committee as well as the compliance officer. The compliance officer of the plan would follow the resolution that you passed last year for the responsibility to be with the operations officer position. This will set consistency of the responsibility versus appointing someone new each year. The compliance committee is made up of those working the plan. They are the compliance officer, the departmental compliance officers, the director of community services, and the public health director. Now let's just go through the plan and incorporate some of the training. So the corporate compliance plan, the county provides medical and health related services that are billable to Medicare, Medicaid, or a third party payer. These services are provided by 2 departments, the public health department and mental health. Therefore, it is in the public's best interest to establish a compliance plan to ensure that 1, quality medical and health services are provided, that these services are rendered in a manner that fully conforms to all state and federal regulations, as well as the laws, that a control structure exists to reduce the risk of potential fraud or abuse, and that a process exists to self-correct and self-report errors to help with adhering to these laws. Overall, we want to ensure that the services we conduct as a county are done so in the highest ethical manner. You now know the reasons behind the plan, so let's talk about what the goals are. First, we always want to improve quality, efficiency, and consistency of services. We want to demonstrate a strong commitment to corporate and individual integrity and ethical behavior. We want to develop a system for employees and others to report potential unlawful or improper conduct, and of course, without risk of retaliation. We want to develop policies and procedures to oversee the medical necessity and of course the quality of care, and initiate corrective action, which prevents further fraud, abuse, or other inappropriate activities. So everybody's been provided a copy of the full plan to read on your own. I just want to review what the sections of the plan are to summarize some of the information. The first section of the plan, of course, is some definitions. The 2 that we just want to focus on right now are abuse and fraud. Abuse is practices that are inconsistent with sound fiscal, business, medical, or professional practices, which can result in unnecessary costs to the medical assistance program, payments for services that were not necessary, or payments for services which fail to meet standards for healthcare. Now, fraud, which pertains to the compliance plan in summary, is an intentional deception or misrepresentation made with the knowledge that deception could result in an unauthorized benefit to a provider or another person. Basically, knowingly makes false statements or representation, deliberately conceals any material or fact to obtain medical assistance which would not be entitled. It's an intent to defraud, submits false information or claims for the purpose of receiving greater compensation, and retaining a benefit after knowingly you are aware that the benefit is not authorized under the federal and state regulations. The following sections of the plan, there's 8 fundamental components. To summarize, first component is to establish internal procedures. This would include a code of conduct, such as honesty, respect, confidentiality, billing of services, payment, medical necessity, governance of the plan, credentialing, and business practices. Next component is the appointment of a compliance officer, compliance committee, what their responsibilities and their oversight. Another component of the plan is training and reporting. Next is we want to have disciplinary policies and the mechanisms used for monitoring and auditing areas of risk. And then, of course, responding to and investigating and correcting compliance issues. And the last component is the policy of non-intimidation and non-retaliation for good faith participation of the plan. So in the written plan, in addition to the 8 outlined fundamental components, there are the compliance contact numbers, whistleblower protection, the annual plan for review, and all the federal and New York State statutes relating to filing false claims. These are Exhibit A of the plan. They're right in the back. And of course, I will let Rich Graham explain and answer all questions pertaining to that large exhibit, of course. Sorry. So just in summary, the compliance plan provided to you in full and in writing, provides an administrative framework for addressing the areas most likely to present a compliance risk. The plan includes a structure to ensure that the counties and its covered departments are compliant with all the federal and state laws, the rules, and of course, the regulations. We will ensure that all the covered departments, employees follow and acknowledge their understanding of the plan and the code of conduct that is included, and they agree to abide by it. All covered persons within the plan that cooperate and participate with the standards identified within it will ensure that the county maintains a high level of competence as well as ethical behavior in the delivery of our services. I appreciate your time and allowing me to summarize the corporate compliance plan. And Rich will take any questions.
Anybody have any questions at all? I think Shereen told you this, but this is state mandated for all the legislators, so you've gone through the training, so. Anything for Rich or Shereen? Nothing? Okay, thank you. All right, our next presentation is Sherry Weiss, Cayuga Community Health Network, Homeless Outreach and Advocacy Program. Sherry? You're welcome.
Good evening, members of the legislature. We know you have a very, very busy schedule, so we just want to say thank you for allowing us to come before you and talk to you about our program. I am Sherry Weiss. I'm the executive director for the Cayuga Community Health Network, and with me is Nicole G., who is our street outreach and advocacy coordinator. And I don't know how to use this, so just hit the button. Yep. So we're going to talk about our street outreach program.
Make sure the little switches up. You got a side there.
Oh, this one.
Oh, there you go.
Is it on?
You just have to push that. Yeah, it happened to me a couple of times. I had to practice using this a couple of times.
No, I'm trying to, I think
It's
it's off.
Yeah. There, then you.
I swear we
There
should be better.
you go.
Oh,
There you go.
Okay, we are really good at technology most of the time, but I am embarrassingly not showing that. All right. So we just want to talk about our street outreach and advocacy program, our services, how we benefit the community, and the savings costs that we hope to pass on to the county. This is just some pictures that were taken. Homelessness comes in many forms in Cayuga County. And I'm happy with that. It comes in many forms. And so a lot of our folks are receiving services through something called emergency housing. They go through Chapel House. They also go through DSS and are placed in hotels. And we do have a fair number of folks who live in some of the encampments, and we just wanted to provide sort of some photographs of some of what the encampments look like. Some of you are familiar with these and others may not be.
So some of the referrals and assistant programs that our agency helps with, in my position specifically, is I will walk them through the process of DSS with emergency shelter. We will navigate working with landlords as far as helping them with the housing portion if they do have an income, but are struggling to get into a place. I do a lot of the referrals. So if somebody's expressing mental health issues or addiction, I'm consistently referring them to our local agencies that we, have relationships with, things like that. We've also done a lot of landlord contacts, landlord mediation. So if I have a specific person who, with the moratorium being now lifted, a lot of people are being evicted. So some of the clients that I've worked with, we've gotten to the point where it might have just needed a little mediation and maybe just a month's rent to avoid the entire being evicted process, and then going down to DSS and having to receive services and housing, up to 4 or 5 plus people in a family.
I also do want to mention that you did receive a fully written proposal for your review. So this is just kind of reviewing some of that. So,
Oh, okay. All right. See, I know I can't really see it. Okay. So in 2022, 151 of homeless individuals served indicated that they did have mental health disorder. 3 homeless individuals that we served indicated that they had drug use disorder. 72 of the homeless individuals served indicated that they had both alcohol and drug disorders. 31 of homeless individuals served had a developmental disability, and 50 homeless individuals served had a physical disability.
and this is from the Homeless Management Information System, which is a system that all of the programs that work with the homeless communities and are HUD funded. Also, our street outreach program participates in putting this data in. So this is verifiable data that we're presenting to you. So, and this was out of the Very here. All right, come on. And let's go down. All right, then. Right?
Being home.
I'm telling you.
We might have, it's not you.
Oh, okay. Can you just advance the slide for me? Is that, are you able to do that? Get to the good part.
Yeah.
Are you able to- Did that work?
We were kicked out of the Zoom.
Oh.
Yeah. Good times.
So some of this will come together nicely because we'll let you know exactly how many people we served for the year. So when you look at those numbers, you say, is that really a big number? And it's actually a simple number for the number of individuals that we've worked with throughout the year of 2022.
Mr. Chairman, while they're trying to do that, can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Andy. Yep.
Sure.
Was there overlap in those numbers?
You mean duplicated?
Well, like one person,
In more than one box.
more than one box.
Yeah, so one person receives multiple services, but the individuals counted are individuals. So, yeah, but and like in the proposal, I say it's like not a one and done kind of thing. There are multiple hours spent with one person because there's a variety of services they need. Homelessness is a traumatic experience. So
Follow up on that. I think what I think I was wondering too, the same thing is when you had those different categories, so somebody who had a physical impairment, where they also maybe had a mental impairment, or did they also have a drug? So were more than one, could they be repeated in those different categories of need?
Some of them, yes, like a lot of times substance use and mental health go hand in hand. So sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But HMIS does work to identify individuals, and when you enter into that system, you sort of have to pick one or the other. When I've done the housing applications and things, so it does try to individualize them. So I'm going to try to decipher this slide. So according to I just want to give you like a sense of the cost, like what does it cost to house somebody in emergency housing? So according to our county's DSS, the average cost of emergency housing is about $80 to $100 per night per person or per room. So let me be clear about that. And you can put a couple of people in a room, right? Average cost of a night in jail for shelter, food, and some folks intentionally get put in jail so they can get a hot meal and a safe place to sleep is about $130 a night. According to the HMS data in 2022, our county served 304 homeless individuals and 74 homeless families. In our experience, the average amount of time spent in a shelter or hotel is about 6 months to 2 years. Now, this is assuming no case management, no help, just being in there. Cool. All right, next slide, please. So in 2022, the county spent just over $2 million for emergency housing. The primary causes of homelessness that have been observed are behavioral health issues, lack of affordable housing, landlord bias, and supportive housing capacity. A lot of folks need those additional supports and we just don't have them. We have some coming, but currently right now we don't have the capacity. And the cost of emergency housing has been steadily rising over the last 3 years. And in your proposal, you have a couple of examples of that. Let's see if this works. Yes. Okay. So what are we asking for? Why are we here? The cost of the program that we run for our street outreach and advocacy, the entire year costs $60,000. That funds Nicole, that funds the admin, it funds her mileage. We get most of our program supplies donated. So $60,000 is 1 year funding. And we're going to kind of show you, hopefully you understand the projected cost savings of that.
Yeah, sure. Our program has the ability to partner with county resources to identify homeless individuals and with services and support. So again, we consistently are making those referrals to our partners that we, have here in Cayuga County. I will tell you, I do cover all Cayuga counties on one person, and majority of our homeless population is right here in Auburn. I have maybe had on one hand Moravia area and things like that. Majority of every person is usually here. Once homeless individuals are part of a permanent supportive housing program or a voucher program, they are no longer needing support from the county. If this is done for just 6 individuals, this ask will pay for itself.
In other words, $60,000 is about the cost of 6 individuals. And just for a little bit of clarity, because I don't know if I put it in the slide, but it's in your presentation. The city of Auburn has already, we applied for funding with them. We received $60,000 for them. What we're asking for is the other $60,000, which would make our program whole for 2 years. In other words, we'd be able to provide these services over 2 years. We also do homeless prevention. So our program works with those at risk of homelessness. And to date, we've helped 8 households remain stably housed, meaning that they didn't get evicted. We worked things out with their landlord. We found some way to help pay for the rent. We got them the services they needed in order to be able to remain stably housed. And in some cases, those 8 households, so think of those 8 households. And again, think of the cost, $2 million, right? And the longer somebody stays in emergency housing, the more it costs. So we're able to get folks out a lot quicker because of the fact that we're working one-on-one, helping them navigate those systems. So if these 8 households had become homeless, they would have added a minimum of $24,000 per month to the cost burden of the county. We want to share a success story with you.
So recently in the last month, I had a mom reach out to me who had 4 children and 6 cats. And she was in the process of losing her apartment that she had just moved into. And I was navigating and found what was called a mainstream voucher program that was approved and on her behalf. And the landlord board was willing to work with code to make sure the apartment was good enough for them to all live in it. And she now is on that program for as long as she needs to be. There's no cap off of that. So now she, at a discounted rate, will be able to afford her rent. And it, was nice because a displacement of 4 children plus her and 6 cats, imagine the cost of that in general.
In terms of a single individual, we have a gentleman that we've been working with a long time.
Not my first case.
Her first, yeah, very first. And so we said, 6 months to 2 years, this gentleman really, really struggled, but every time he would come back, we'd be able to get him into another program. We got him some medical, he got Medicaid, he got referred to food services, he got referred to SNAP. And eventually is now going to be housed as of April 5th.
Yeah.
Senate Meadows. So, this program, it takes a lot of steps. Without somebody there to help people navigate, they will be in that emergency housing a lot longer and struggling a lot longer. What our program has been able to do, in I think in your proposal, you see we've helped like 94 individuals and the 8 households. Those folks were able to move from emergency housing into stable housing, employment, getting services they needed, services for their children, getting them into substance use treatment, mental health treatment. So these are all, it's really hard to navigate that stuff. I don't know if anybody here has ever tried to just fill out one form for any kind of government level program, but it's kind of tricky. So being able to have someone there to help navigate that is essential, and it helps them not only get through in these systems, but find the services that will support them and eventually move them, like those permanent supportive housing programs. Now it's no longer a cost to the county. Other housing programs, if somebody gets a job, is able to pay their rent and they got help, because a lot of folks are losing their homes a lot because of that eviction moratorium being lifted. And now landlords are raising the rents, and so they need help to find alternatives. So are there any questions?
Yes.
Much for bringing this to us. Homeless prevention, who does somebody contact if they know that they're facing homelessness?
So what's really nice about our partnerships with so many of the organizations here and so many of the service providers here, we are fairly well known. Nicole worked really hard to promote and talk about our services, and the organization really worked hard. So a lot of times somebody will probably usually go to DSS first, and then they'll call Nicole or give them Nicole's information. DSS can do their part, but then they're like, hey, Nicole, can you help us? If they end up at Chapel House is a great partner. They'll also sometimes ask for help. They might end up, the sheriff might end up picking somebody up and be like, all right, I know who to call. I'll call Nicole. So, usually it's through our community partners that we get, I would say 95% of our referrals are from various agencies where somebody shows up and says, hey.
Like
I need
Seymour
help.
Library, for example, is a
Yeah.
huge one. People go there to get warm, use the free Wi-Fi. Drew constantly calling me, hey, I've got somebody here, things like that. I get, I work with the police will call me sometimes if they've come across somebody, or they'll give me a heads up the next day that we canvass areas too. Me and other staff will go together and, look for, if we got a heads up on certain things, we'll go and
Like
look
some
and
of
check
those
it out.
encampments. And even like convenience store owners know us, and the
Yes.
owner of the Auburn Hotel knows us. And we'll reach out and say, hey, I think somebody needs help.
So if one of the legislators gets a phone call from a constituent that says, look, I'm gonna lose my house for whatever reason, what do we do?
Give us a call.
And who do we call?
You can call Nicole at 315-252-4212, extension 101. And we start the process of finding programs and services. And that's the other thing, like understanding all the programs and services. This is an amazing program. You offer, we offer so many services and programs to really support people, but it's the navigation of knowing where they are, what they are, how do you apply for them? How do you know if you're eligible? All of those things are very, very complicated. And when you're in the middle of homelessness and, think about that. If you're standing, at February 14th of 2013, I became homeless because my house burned down. And I stood there in the middle of my driveway and I said, I don't know what to do, like for that moment. And I was actually working with homeless people at that time. And all of a sudden it was like very cathartic. It was like, oh my God, this is what they face every day. I was privileged. I had insurance. So once I kind of got over the shock of it, I was able to get a hotel. I was able to get safe and live in a hotel for 5 months, which isn't fun. But individuals who lose everything and find themselves out on the street, it's really traumatic and it's scary. And most of them are not that lucky or that fortunate or that privileged to be able to have something to back them up. And this is why this program is so important.
Questions? I actually have a couple. What other agencies do you work with besides Chapel?
Oh, gosh.
Nevertheless, all right, so I work, I do referral processes over to, Nick's Ride, if, it's drug and alcohol related. We have, Liberty Resources is a great one, another one that I work really close with. We've got, there's Chad for referrals if they're not already being referred through DSS. The Main Street Voucher Program, the AHA, the Section 8, there's all those organizations that we work with to try to get more hands in the pot for housing.
Yeah, Liberty Resources, East Hill Medical.
Yeah, East Hill
We do
Medical.
several things with East Hill Medical. The health department sometimes if there's need for that. Mental health, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so like quite a few of our community partners.
Do you have a percentage between single people and how many families? Is there a lot of families?
So as far as who I work with, I keep documentation. As of today, I have serviced 102 individuals and 15 families by myself.
Yeah. And that is our numbers, and then
And then,
HMS
yeah.
has other numbers, because we work with everybody, but we work with, I'd say about half, which is I think what those numbers demonstrate.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
I just have a comment, Chair, and that is that, I'd just like to let my colleagues know who may not be familiar with Cayuga Community Health Network has a long-standing 501c3 partnership in this community with a very long-standing good reputation for work in a really varied area of community health. With a, I think over the years, quite a varied board, an experienced board, a lot of expertise directing the way. So I'm glad to see this direction into homelessness as part of the community health network.
And Sheriff, I know I work with them a lot. I'm sure Brian does too. And we appreciate very, very much what you do.
They have a robust website as well. So,
Yeah.
from other
The
colleagues.
jail has brought in some reentry programs, and I actually go on Mondays to assist individuals upon release to have a plan. So that is another thing that I've been currently doing as well with the local jail.
And she's doing something called Circle of Security, which is funded separately through another grant, which teaches, it's a parenting class with women and
men.
and
I'm
men
doing it all.
in the jail.
Yeah, so they can
we're providing
obtain
that.
parenting
Great.
skills.
Our website will give you kind of show the variety of different wellness services and programs that we try to provide for the county. We're always looking for more.
Good partnership. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Sherry. Thank you, Nicole. Here, next will be Jenny and Kevin about Cold War veterans exemption. This is kind of interesting, so.
At least I hope it's interesting. All right, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin Schwab. I've been the Director of Veteran Services for just over a year. It came to my attention a month or two ago that all veterans weren't eligible for a property tax exemption in Cayuga County. When I was forwarded a message from a woman in Victory asking why this was, and all veterans in Oswego County were eligible. This is when a light bulb went off my head and I realized Cayuga County did not offer the Cold War veteran exemption. And that's what brings us here tonight. I've learned more about property tax exemptions in the past year than I ever could have conceived that I would learn or would want to learn. So I have the backup expert here, Jennifer Indelicato. And if you have any technical questions, she's the person. We're going to go through this presentation. I think I'll answer some of it. It's kind of complicated. I try to simplify it, but wait till the end and I think we'll have a clear picture. All right, so I have to try and figure out how to do slides, right? All right, there we go.
You got it.
We got it. All right. So there we go. That's our outline where we're going to go through. All right, so the problem statement I came up with is that the Cayuga County does not offer the Cold War property tax exemption. We'll explain that. And that makes around 1,000 veterans, including some veterans with a disability rating, ineligible for a property tax exemption. And so when I saw that, I went, wow, that's an interesting thing to deal with. So our desired outcome is that we pass the veteran tax exemption for these veterans. This will be equitable to other non-combat veterans. So for veterans who never deployed overseas, it's similar between the two tax exemptions. We'll get into that. And it's recognition of their service during the Cold War. So a little explanation here. Veterans exemption is reduction of the assessed value of the property. The veteran must have been honorably discharged. It must be the primary resident of the veteran or family member. If they move, they have to reapply for the exemption. And each municipality has control over the tax exemption. And that's where we get into Cayuga County and others. We're just going to go through some of the others as well, just to give you an idea. So the two types of veteran property tax exemption are what are called the alternative veteran exemption. And this is veterans who served during wartime. They don't have to have gone to war. They do not have to have deployed, and they still get an exemption. There's an additional exemption for if they did deploy and go into combat under that alternative veteran tax exemption. All right, and there's some dates up there that give you an idea of when wartime was. And essentially, we've been at war since 2 August of 1990. So all veterans from 1990 until now are still under the wartime exemption. The Cold War exemption, if they served during non-war time, but during the Cold War period, which was 1945 to 1991. Now, the majority of these veterans fall into the time period from May of 1975 to the August of 1990 period. So right after Vietnam, up until Iraq invaded Kuwait back in 1990. There are some, obviously, many of them have died off, who served from 1955 to 1964 between Korea and Vietnam that did not serve during wartime, but it is the Cold War period. So that's where the difference between the alternative or wartime exemption and the Cold War exemption comes into play. These are two separate exemptions. You get one and not the other. They do not combine. The only thing that combines for the wartime veteran, they get a wartime exemption, plus if they were in combat, they get a combat exemption as well. So that's how that plays out for you. Now, for each of those exemptions, if a veteran has a disability rating from the VA, there's an additional exemption up to 50% of the rating off the property value. All right, and this could be pretty significant. If a veteran has 100% disability rating, they get 50% off the value of their property. There are limits, and you'll see that as we go through. It depends on how the municipality passed the exemption. All right, it's not a separate, it has to be combined with either the alternative or the Cold War exemption. And in order to get this exemption, they have to show their disability rating. And since I've been in this position, I have found many veterans who weren't aware of this exemption. So we've encouraged them to put in for this exemption. All right, if you want to look at this online, it's on the Real Property website. And this is where I got the information that's in the next several slides. I'm going to go kind of fast. This kind of gives you an idea of the municipalities and the way they offer these exemptions. So this is the Cayuga County overall exemption right here. So the wartime is 15% or 9,000 max off a property. And this has to do with equalization rates as well. So if the equalization rate is low, you won't get that full 9,000 off your property, depending on how valuable your property is. But this creates obviously a condition where you can't just write off the entire value of a property. A combat veteran gets an additional 10%, which adds up to 25%, or 15,000 max combined off the value of the property. And if a veteran has a rating of 100%, then they'll get 50% off the value of their property up to 30,000 max. So if you have a veteran who has a 60% rating, they get 30% off up to the max. Right, hopefully that's pretty clear. Now I'm going to go through how this is applied in different municipalities. Now the municipalities have their own percentages and they decide what they're going to give off in their exemption for their municipalities. So you can see here that these municipalities give a wartime exemption with those amounts. I'll let you look at this one, and we're going to go through the other ones kind of fast. And then if you look at the bottom there, The city of Auburn offers both the wartime exemption and the Cold War exemption. Right, so veterans can get either of those two. And also Wasco recently enacted their Cold War exemption. Right, so this gives you an idea of how a municipality can apply these exemptions. So we're going to go through the rest of them in the county here. This is where most of the municipalities fall out, right here. If you want to find yours real quick, you can do that. All right. These municipalities do not offer the Cold War exemption. See that here. Niles, great place to live for. I want to throw that out there. And Springport uses the Cold War exemption so that pretty much all of their veterans can get a property tax exemption. So that's how it plays out by municipality. So our recommended course of action is to enact a county level veteran Cold War property exemption that is equal to the non-combat exemption that you saw under the alternative tax exemption. So in my mind, the only difference between a Cold War veteran and a veteran who did not deploy is the fact that what we would say the balloon didn't go up. There was nothing that happened during that period that they could have been called up. And one of the things I think that makes this actually really important is that 1975 to 1990 time period, the all volunteer force of our services started in 1973. So those veterans who served from 75 to 90 all volunteered to serve. And I think it's important that we recognize that service and that voluntary service. So based on our data, we use the number 1,000 veterans who could be eligible for this Cold War exemption. I got that information from the census. You can look it up. It's plus or minus. We thought it was a nice number to do the math. And then we did Jennifer did a great job of extrapolating the number of veterans who had claimed a disability around the county. And we came up with about 172 that would have a disability rating that would claim in addition to the Cold War exemption. So the estimated saving per veteran without a disability rate is about $63 a year. So it's a good exemption to show thank you for your service during that time frame. Now, if a veteran has a disability rating, that could go up to around the average $168 a year. Right? The total amount that would come out of the levy is around $83,000 a year. So if you know how that works, it gets spread out among the properties in the county. So hopefully that was clear enough, but if not, we are here to answer your questions.
Question, somebody, yes, Elaine.
They would have to apply, and that's part of all of this. I'm still finding veterans that are eligible for these exemptions that have not applied. So obviously we want to get this, if we're going to do this, we want to get it done and start publicizing that these veterans now would be eligible for this property tax exemption. But not all these veterans own property. So that's why it's, we did our best to come up with a good number. And I think we did a good job of that, and we'll just move forward and see how it plays out.
As a veteran, I'm asking you all to go to, when you go to your town meetings, your village meetings, please get this slideshow and take it with you. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of veterans that don't know about this. And I'm sure that there's some in your district. So as a veteran, Mark's a veteran, please do this because they can use the help. And I know Jen and put an awful lot of time in the statistics. I know that's for sure. And certainly Kevin did a lot of work on this. So there will be a resolution coming forward sometime.
No, we've got a resolution in the docket tonight.
Oh,
The public hearing.
The public hearing.
It's got to go forward to a public hearing.
Yeah, this is not the vote on the resolution. This
No,
is called a public hearing.
this is to hold the public
So we'll
hearing.
probably get the resolution maybe in May. Who's Andy?
Chairman, you obviously, I assume, know coming up with these numbers, you know, how many veterans we have. Is there a contact? I mean, does Cayuga County have the ability to be in contact with all of their, does the Veterans Department have the ability to be in contact with all of the veterans?
So the answer generally is no. What we can do, the only thing access we have is if a veteran has a disability rating, then we can look them up in the VA system. But we would have to do a, you know, public relations blitz on this to ensure that veterans were aware that they could now apply for the Cold War property tax exemption.
And we would certainly disseminate it to all the assessors, which the applications go to the assessors. And, you know, when people are calling because they're struggling with their tax amounts, they're calling their assessors to see if there's any exemptions that they might be able to apply for. So they would be able to help disseminate.
It would be similar to the way they advertise for, what's the school tax credit? STAR, enhanced STAR, that kind of thing. Or the assessors could put that in their newsletters. Oh, okay.
Jim,
So to follow up on Andy's question, the resident that brought this up, who I think wants to remain nameless right now, I just called Kevin and said, hey, and then after that, I went to our American Legion and talked to the American Legion. So if you have one of those in your community, that's another way to outreach. So once the program gets going, I'll meet up with them again. So Kevin's office has been wonderful in helping out with this.
okay,
Just real quick, this is something they have to do every year, correct?
Now, once they apply, it is applied to the property.
To the property, okay,
Unless they might.
thank you.
okay, I know the exemptions are a little confusing, but please reach out to Jenna and Kevin, and they'll have a slideshow for you that they can send to you and take it to your meetings.
One more
Yeah, Andy,
question.
go ahead.
Is there a income limit or just?
Nope.
Okay.
No property limit.
No, there's no income. It's not like a low income exemption. It's the value of the property and then those percentage and those limits that come off the value of the property.
Okay, anyone else?
Told you I learned a little bit about property tax exemption.
Yeah.
Well, you learn from the best. That's the John Cap, thank you so very much. We have one more presentation, and the only reason you guys are last is because you were the last ones to ask. So
Sure.
so we made you wait around.
You
Thanks,
found the
Bill.
most comfortable seat back there to sit on too. Hi, everyone. Recognize some of your faces. We were here last month, I believe, at the planning board presentation, so it's nice to see some of you again. For those of you I haven't met yet, it's a good crowd here tonight. My name is Chris Betts, and I'm with Acadia Energy, and over here is John Bay. He is my boss, the CEO and the founder of Acadia Energy. And just to start, if I told you I'm a solar company, which we are in a way, I'm pretty sure about upfront 50% of you to 75% of you, Mark, I know you might be one of them, would say, I don't think I like you. You're solar. No, I'm good. And I understand that. Completely understand the potentially bitter taste in your mouth for solar. But if I was to tell you after that I'm up here to tell you how we can make you money and more importantly, save you money, January is right now being looked at by all of our assembly members and our legislature, right? So they have a full year to look at this scoping plan, this Climate Act, Protection Act, and to make all the rules and regulations for us for the next year or during this year. So it's happening right now. I just had a meeting with an Assembly Energy Committee chairman. He's like, yep, we're talking about this every day. He lives in Wayne County. He's from Wayne County, so he represents that area. He's like, they're electrifying all of our school buses. So we're gonna have to spend a lot of county money to electrify all our school buses. They want all of us driving electric vehicles, certainly by 2050, but the majority of us by 2030. I don't have one. I'm not sure how many of you have one. I'm not even sure where there are charging stations here. So not only that, they want to electrify everything that we do. And so what happens significantly up, I would say, over the last 2 years. And I'm in a municipal utility in Fairport, so I live up country. It's going to cost us, the ratepayers, you and me, Brian, James, all of us, more money on our utility bills. And so we have the PowerPoint slide here. I can show you. We've got, skip past this. Well, before I go to the utility bills, because we do have hard numbers for you guys to see. If you haven't seen it on your own bill, you're going to start seeing it. We are going to start seeing it. So what's been happening now, and that's why I joke about you may not like solar, is over the last, 5-10 years, we've seen a lot of big solar companies come in, and we have the land upstate that's valuable for solar because we have the land. New York State, or downstate, the city doesn't have the land, right? So these big out of state is going to be paid for by us. Dee Dee Barrett knows that. She's speaking up for people like us who live here and have no benefit of this. So the state's already doing all of these measures. So whether you know it or not, it's happening. So what we do here at Acadia is we have partnered with your utility here, the Cayuga County Public Utility Service Agency. Not a lot of people may be super familiar with CAPUSA, is the acronym for it. There are some CAPUSA members in our audience right now, but the state granted you guys, Cayuga County, this utility, which is kind of a rare gift, right? I think the state has barely given anybody the right to have their own utility. And you have this beautiful gift, right? You have the legs to carry the power, but you haven't been able to do a ton of power generation yet. So we're partnering, we've already started partnering with CAPUSA, and we're able to create energy here in upstate New York and transfer and deliver that power via CAPUSA. It's a little technical, but essentially stay with me. You guys have the legs to carry it and keep it here in Cayuga County. So it's not going onto the grid. We're not going to build a solar field, stick that power onto the grid and then send it where it's being used most, which is downstate. We are able, with this partnership with CAPUSA, and what we're able to do is work with our county partner to create power here in upstate New York, keep the power upstate. And not only are we keeping it and generating it up here, but it's beneficial to you all as well. Now, why is that? Because we're able to produce it at a cheaper rate. And we agree upon those rates. And we can get into the technical side a little bit. I don't want to lose you guys, but we can agree on these rates so that, let's go forward so we can show you some of the rates. This is showing how our sustainability hub works. Let me skip through this. So if you're looking at these rates, you see the upstate average, that's you and I right now, paying the T&D. So your electric bill split in half, right? You have the power generation itself, and then you have the T&D costs. So it's about half, right? So right now you're paying about 8 cents a kilowatt for your T&D up here. And the ESCO renewable commodities, so that's the power mix that has green energy mixed in with it. The rate is about 11 cents a kilowatt. So your total, if you're paying for green energy up here, is about 19 cents a kilowatt. That's pretty expensive. Now, fossil fuels are cheaper, but they're going away. So this is what we're going to be stuck with. Now, you look at that monthly bill for that was 2023 current pricing. 2024, you can see that jumps already because of those infrastructure upgrades. Now that T&D is at 99 cents a kilowatt, 9.5 cents. Renewable commodity goes up to 12 cents a kilowatt, and it goes up even more for 2025. So the fuel bill jumps from $2,100 right now this year to $2,600 in 2025. And that's without more and more of these infrastructure upgrades. So the state estimates that the infrastructure upgrade cost, just to give you guys an idea, to keep up with all this electrification is $60 billion. Right now, Con Ed got about $4.5 billion of that approved. So we're just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to infrastructure upgrade costs here in New York State. So John saw this happening and said, you know, historically we relied on fossil fuels for our power. So where does that come from? Well, it comes from the ground in Texas and Oklahoma, it comes from Saudi Arabia, natural gas from Russia, Serbia. We have relied on these fossil fuels for power. Now we're relying on electricity for power more and more and more. And the state's going to make it so we're all electric. We can generate that power here. We don't have to rely on anybody else to create that power. And right now, of the 4 ESCOs in New York State you can buy renewable power for, none of them are producing all of that power in New York. So you're paying for RECs for some out-of-state solar company that's creating it in Texas or Phoenix or wherever else they're creating the power, Florida. We're buying it up here and we're paying for it. Why not create it ourselves and then save a little money on it and make money on it? Because power is money. Power is the future. So I'm going to let John kind of go into a little more of the specifics if you guys have questions. But this partnership we're creating with CAPUSA here in Cayuga County, if I could get to that map, come backwards, just to kind of show you guys what's happening right now with CAPUSA. So we're looking at, so that's another thing about what we do is we really want to be able to work with our community partners. That's why I joked when I came up here, if I'm a solar company, you don't like me. We understand that historically solar companies have come in and created these solar fields where people are not super enthused about it. So we're kind of changing it up a little bit. What we decided to do was come in and work with our community partners to form a partnership So not only do we kind of decide together where these renewable energy sites will go, so that way we make sure people are relatively happy about where these sites are occurring, but also so we can partnership so that we can all make money. So because of the structure of our partnership with CAPUSA, in each county we go into, because CAPUSA is not just limited to Cayuga County, we're able to make money for the county. It's like 1/4 cent per kilowatt hour, but on average, if we produce, a certain amount of kilowatts and megawatts, just again, not to bore you with the numbers, but we can save and we can make you as a profit, the county, $300,000 to $400,000 a year. Now that's money that can be saved that's money that can be you can make property tax exemptions for veterans. You can have more money for your renewable energy, for your solid waste. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you wouldn't have otherwise, that you probably would have been spending on utility bills when the utility rates continue to go up. So these are some of the sites, just to show you guys, here in Cayuga County that we've been looking at. And you can see there's about 500 megawatts of power total if we're able to secure all these sites. Now, these are the majority are county-owned sites, some private, that we've been looking at, and we're in the process of evaluating now. And these sites would be renewable energy sites, and they're sites that aren't being really used for anything right now too, which is nice. So it's not like it would be some big beautiful mall if it was there, or now it's a solar field or something nice. These are sites that are ideal for renewable energy sites. And we love that we're working with our community partners to identify these sites. And we love that at the end of the day, when we create this power is staying here in upstate New York. Now it gets technical as to how we can split the power, but essentially think of it as this. You guys as Cayuga County can form what's called a CCA, it's community choice aggregation. So 50%, so say we're making 500 megawatts of power, 250 megawatts of power can be used by Cayuga County CCA, community choice aggregation, to be purchased at a rate, back to that rate. The numbers we were looking at. Now look at those rates at the bottom. So this is for your utility bill for a average residential user. $2,100 right now for what the infrastructure we have. Ours, if we had this up and running right now, your bill annually, $1,500. Now look at the big difference when you go to 2025. You're looking at $2,600 for your annual utility bill in total for your residential use. If we have this going and this up and running as we plan to do, $1,600. That's a savings of $1,000 a year. When everything else is in this inflationary period, including cost of eggs, which still is blowing my mind about how much they cost. If we can save that kind of money on our utility bill, especially when we're using more electricity than ever, to me, that's a win-win. I live upstate, I pay upstate costs. I don't want to have to keep paying for these infrastructure upgrades when a lot of the use is downstate anyways. So the other 50%, so the other 250 megawatts, we can use wholesale. We sell behind the meter for industrial use here. We've got Micron coming outside Syracuse. There's going to be a lot of industries that come with Micron from out of state, maybe from in-state, that want to develop here. So it's great. I mean, this is exciting. We're in a really exciting time for Onondaga County, for Cayuga County, for all the areas around where Micron is $100 billion company is coming in. So we have this potential to incentivize businesses by selling them power behind the meter at a way cheaper rate than they would otherwise. And we can say, in your county IDA and EDAs can say, hey, we can bring manufacturing here. That's jobs. That's more money into the county coffers. That's property tax income. That's all kinds of things that come when you bring those kind of jobs. And so we're really excited about the potential to not only, again, save you guys as individual homeowners money, to make the county money to use for whatever they choose to do with it. That would be up to y'all to decide. But also to create job opportunities here, to create economic opportunities. When has power ever really done that for us before? But we can change the narrative now because the way we create and use energy is changing. So I think we should, let's step away from that old business model, right? Of how we buy energy overseas or we buy it from Texas or whatever. Let's create our own energy up here. We have just enough sunlight to make it happen. And we have the technology to do that. We're not asking you all for any finances. This doesn't cost the county any money. We're funding all of this as a private company, but we're forming these partnerships so that we can benefit from some of these incentives. We can benefit from community wealth. And it's really, to us, a win-win. So we're really excited about it. Again, I hopefully kind of changed your mind a little bit about solar, because like when I say the word, and I know I live upstate, like, ugh, I drive by them, what benefit is it for us except to stare at them? But there's so much benefit potentially with what we're doing here with this partnerships.
Chris, so the bottom line here is that you have the capability of controlling your own energy destiny. Stop taking your power, stop taking your resources and sending it downstate. I care, I'm moving into Fleming in May. So I'm going to be a resident here. I'm in Fairport now, so I'm an upstate person. And it's just tiring to see the resources going downstate. And I'm born and raised in New Jersey, so I'm a downstater. But you have the resources up here. Use them for control your own destiny and use them for your own benefit. Create jobs locally here. Don't let companies like Bombardier or those other organizations move out. Bring new companies in at a discounted electric rate, which you, the county, you set the rates and the tariffs and you work on it. So it's really an economic model. I mean, we're just using technologies that are out being used all over the world right now, but you can implement them here and you can do it rather than having companies from Canada or Florida come in, buy up property and put the solar where they want to and not benefiting the local residents. So on our model, I guess one of the slides that didn't come up was the way that we do about 50% of the energy to go to local residents. So that when you open up your utility bill, you'll see a discount actually on your utility bill because you're providing it to your neighbors at a less expensive price. And then the other 50% we earmark for businesses to bring more businesses into the community for jobs. So it's really an economic model that puts you in control of your own destiny. So on that note,
We'd love to, yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your presentation. I happen to live in a part of the county where this is a big issue right now. Solar fields are not welcome. We're taking away tillable soil, farmland. One of the questions, and by the way, there are death threats being made to farmers, and you've probably heard about that as well. Why farmlands, tillable soil, why not run the course of the thruway or the course of existing power lines?
So that's part of what we're doing now is with these counties. So these are majority of those properties you saw for the 500 megawatt county-owned properties. So they're not tillable. They're not used by farmers right now anyways. They're county-owned properties. And
how much of that did you say? I'm sorry.
So the majority of those properties.
Yeah, it's about what we've done is we've done some studies already on Cayuga County, and you had approximately 99 property parcels that we were able to get out of your online system that you were not collecting taxes on, that were not non-ratable, I guess you would call them. So we sat down with CAPUSA, your utility organization here, honed it down to about 12 sites that are not being used for anything right now, not farming, et cetera. Mark has helped us with that. He kicked my butt a couple of times when I looked at a piece of property that could be used for farming, and we don't use any of those. So it would be properties that the county has that are not utilized for anything, that don't have deed restrictions on them. For example, a park or something that was given to you, by a particular donor, et cetera. So what we're saying, and I think Chris mentioned this, is that we don't come in and look for property. We work with the community on property that you would recognize as good. Is that me?
Yeah.
Feedback. Oh, you got the mic to work. Okay. So again, because we're from upstate here and we're an upstate company, we do things differently. We talk to you first and say, okay, what makes sense to put this in? So I think there's about 14 property parcels in Cayuga that we've earmarked. We've done the same thing with Onondaga. They gave us about 600 acres that they say, hey, we're not going to use this for anything else. Please use it for this particular process. Oneida County, we're almost in partnership. We've been talking to Southern Tier 8, which is the 8 Southern Tier counties that are doing the same thing. They have brownouts continuously. So it makes even more sense for them down there. So again, our model is different. You know, we live here, we work here, and we want to work with the communities on doing this, because it's going to happen. Renewables are going to happen. So you could either let Albany do it, or you could start to do it on your own.
A lot of, okay, that's all right. Go ahead.
Bob or Heidi?
Bobby, let Heidi go ahead.
So when you use the pronoun we as you're talking, what does that mean for us as legislators making a pretty existential decision for the future of children we'll never see born? What is the we? What do you get from it? What are we giving you?
We look at your property, we fund the development of the solar. We partner with you on that development. So we build it, we manage it, we pay for it, and we work with you, with Capusa in this particular case, on what discounts to give to who and what revenue we want to get out of it. So I'm not going to lie, I mean, we're a private company, we make money. But the idea is that you're an owner with us, and we do it with a group of committee or whatever on what we're going to do. Because there's all different types of rate categories that you have to go through. Who are you going to give a bigger discount to? As Chris said, the CLCPA, which is the state policy, they want you to give 20% discount to disadvantaged communities, low and middle income communities, et cetera. So they have some of that regulated already. And so we work within those parameters and to make these discounts. And I just worked on that this past Saturday for 5 hours. So looking for ESCOs. So I don't know if you know what an ESCO is. So you have the commodity on your bill, and those are the people that call you and say, hey, we can save you 10% or whatever. And so out of the 4 people that offer renewables here in New York State, none of them are grown in New York State. So it doesn't help New York State at all. They buy RECs from Louisiana, California, the southern states, and then they use that fossil fuel power over here. So it's really not even helping with climate change or anything of that. So we can work with you on building your own, have that expertise, building your own and managing your own for the future. The National Renewable Energy Laboratories out of Colorado say that by 2040, which is not that far, I might still be around by then, but by 2040, your price is not going to be the numbers on there. It's going to be 39 cents. If you can cut into that and help your community by making it 8 or 10 cents, I mean, that's a huge savings.
Good, thank you.
Elaine?
I just was curious, would you be leasing these properties from the county and then also giving the county this discounted rate to be able to have for its own use and share?
There's about 5 different ways that the county can make money. So depends. So if you want to take, you just had 4 presentations before us that were asking for money. So we can give money back to the county. So you either give it back to the county and put it in this bucket, that bucket, or you give it to people in the community, or you do both. But that's the decision that
those are all the things we have to get
together. Exactly.
As far as the land goes, we can lease, we can buy. There's different options there as well. Bob, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Just want to field questions before I comment.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear the answer to Lydia's question using the throughway. Do you have a shorter version of it? Can you just answer that with a yes or no?
Actually,
it was a good question. I didn't hear the answer to that.
Yeah, at least one of those properties sits on either side of the thruway. So there is some land that abuts right up to the highway that we're looking.
I can clarify that. Having asked Lydia for her that text that came from your grandson, those panels umbrella the highways for miles, and it's probably new technology, but I don't know if it would go around here, but that's what she's talking about.
No, Bob, I wasn't talking about that specifically, but that's part of.
Okay.
Well,
in Europe, they have like it going over the highways.
Yeah.
And that kind of protects the road, and there are a lot of different reasons to do that, but like he's saying, that's new technology.
You're asking about actual
Not worked out.
locations
Yeah.
of solar.
Yeah, I was asking about
So-
why are we taking away tillable, workable land
Well, it-
instead of
We're
using,
not, Lydia, we're
like,
not.
right, yes, I got
We're
it.
not, but we do have sites that are close to the throughway. But again, I was saying this is an economic model. So if you look at it and you say, okay, we have maybe 10 sites that are not close to the highway, but we have some sites that are close to the highway. Those sites that are closer to the highway, in my opinion, would be better used by the IDA to build warehousing or plants where people can move in and create more jobs. So it's kind of a, you could do both. I think the Weedsport site that we looked at, I think is 26 minutes from Micron. So one of the Micron's bringing in 200 supply chain companies that are going to be coming with Micron, and that might be more suitable for a factory than a solar site. But that one is those are close to the thruway, but they're also right next to the CSX rail lines. So it's not some place that somebody's going to be building a house anyway.
Jim,
Do any of the sites, and have you looked at any of the sites that are abandoned properties that are landfills that
Yes.
can't be used for anything else in brownfields?
We just got that list now. Yeah, so you can cap those. So we've been looking at an SPX site with another county up in Watertown that has the same situation, landfills. So you can cap those. You just can't break the barrier with a post. So you have to use some kind of type of ballast device to do on those sites. But yes, we are looking at those.
The county has a couple we're also checking out.
The brownfields?
Yeah.
I see one, there's a brownfield.
Yep.
Yeah, so
It'll never be used for anything.
right. So that's the key. So why have somebody take some farmland, like on Robinson Road? Like on Robinson Road, that can be used for farmland or housing or something like that when you have these other sites. So we've taken the time to work with you, for you. I mean, we've been working with Bob now for probably 5 months, 6 months. On this. Yes, sir. Or, sorry.
So,
go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, Dave.
That's all
I
right.
know.
so we had a presentation about waste and all this. So in 15, 20 years, when these start becoming useless, where are they going?
Which with every project that we do in the state of New York, you have to put in a decommissioning bond, and that bond pays for the taking of, the getting rid of those and bringing the property back to its original state before we touched it. There's a bond that actually gets put in with.
I get that part, and the bond better be damn huge, in my opinion, to be on Cayuga County, because there's places where there's still dead ones sitting, because you're one company, by the time you get to decommission, that's the fifth company. That's usually how it works. But you didn't answer my question as to where they're going when you decommission.
Oh, look, digesters, gasifications. So we're working on a project now in the US Virgin Islands where we're taking all waste, everything except gas, hydrogen, metal, gasifying it, turning it into hydrogen, electricity. So there are good, clean ways. I was listening very closely to the presentation, and I hope that I could get it down out of your website from the first gentleman. That's Mr. Tuttle, I think his name was. Tuttle, yeah. I mean, I'm very interested in what you're doing here again, because I'm going to be a citizen of the county. So we have some technologies that have been what's the word? Tested for 3 years in Hamilton, Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie, that you can totally get rid of the landfill and create it into energy, and then you get paid for that energy or hydrogen or RNG.
It's also, I think, important to note, we're not married. I think Bob's probably about to say, it's not married to just solar. So we're not purely solar. We're also looking into hydrogen, the ingesters, as we spoke about, wind, renewable natural gas. We have a partnership with National Fuel, so we could potentially transport renewable natural gas. So there's a couple different mixes. So I want to make sure we're not just telling you that we're only solar, because we're definitely.
So what you're saying is you're going to turn a solar panel into hydrogen or something? Is that-
Hydrogen, gas, hydrogen, electricity, and sand. Yeah.
Yeah, technology is advancing every day. Some of them are really expensive, like VCRs. I remember we paid like $1,500 for your first VCR. Now you can't sell one for $20. So the technology is changing every day. And right now solar seems to be the best option, but 10 years down the line, who knows, but we still have this partnership in place. And so we're still able to create power and economic opportunities all with it.
I mean, we're not doing that process here. We haven't talked to the town about doing that process here yet, but if we can do it here. I didn't know that there was a problem.
Bob, I know you had your hand up. You want to add to this? I think everybody in the room, maybe not, but Bob's chairman of Capusa. We have several Capusa members here. We appreciate you all coming.
Yeah, a lot of good questions. And I think as a committee, the technology's coming. Hydrogen is going to be Cayuga's savior, really, because it's going to be the technology of the future. And we don't have to worry about solar panels going down the road, but it's not quite there yet. Maybe within 5 years or so, which is within the plan, we will be energized with hydrogen. It's refillable. We can fill cylinders and send it down to the city, and we can have fuel stations with hydrogen. It's coming, and it's probably the cleanest technology coming forward.
Yeah, so right now when you burn fossil fuels, you get, obviously greenhouse gases. When you create power from hydrogen, your offtake is clean water. So it's one of those that we're all really excited about. Hydrogen. It's just there's the technology still coming along.
So one of the things that we talk about is, okay, say 5 years down the road when maybe 50% of the people or 60% of the people have electric cars, and you have these sites in your county, right? Wouldn't it be nice for the county to give out a card to all of the residents and communities that you can get a 50% discount when you charge your car up? Little things like that you're in control of your destiny, not let somebody else do it for you.
I know Chris talked about a few minutes ago about Capusa. We're the lucky ones. Bobby or John, can you tell the group? I know that we have Capusa. A lot of places don't. I think the only place around is Solvay, right, John?
Well, no, Solvay is a public power municipality.
Okay,
It's been in place for over 100 years.
that's where you ran that.
Right. So
Okay, all right.
and here in this county, we're the only county to have a public power utility service agency
In the state?
in the state, voted by the people in this county, about 86 or 87% approval rate, which basically, this happened in 2005, by the way. And basically gave the county legislators a mandate to do something to lower the cost of power. Now, over them years, it came down, now it's going back up.
Yeah, if you go to Capusa's website, literally the first line says, created to give renewable or affordable renewable energy. So, I mean, renewables were built into the idea for Capusa,
So I'm from Fairport. To add on to what John just said, I'm from Fairport. We have a municipal utility there. So my energy right now is about 4.5 cents. And there's 54 communities that have municipal utilities. NIPA put in place in the 50s because NIPA built the 2 dams on the Lake Ontario, one by Buffalo and one up in the St. Lawrence River. And they have a cap on how much power they have. So we're one of the my town is one of the 54 towns that we have a very low rate because of NIPA. But as now electricity usage starts to double, we're still at that cap. So then we're going to have to go out into the open market and buy energy at 10 cents, 12 cents to supplement what we have from NIPA. So although there are municipal utilities, there's a cap on how much energy you do. For Capusa, there's no cap. You can put digesters in, you can be pulling in the RNG from your farms, from the cow's waste, et cetera. You have a whole lot of, that's not proper English, but you have a mess of ways of being able to create energy. And, our gift to you is to try to help you to do that,
We're also talking, as a lot of people don't know this, but Capusa can go within and beyond our county. So we can go to any contiguous county or even farther than that. So some of the stuff they're talking about here, if they're producing a solar field in another county, that's going to come back and give revenue to Cayuga County.
Yep.
So maybe you want to explain that a little.
Yeah, so our partnership with Capusa, just to kind of throw numbers, like say it costs us 4 cents a kilowatt to generate the power and we sell it for 6 cents. So that's 2 cents profit. Say we take a cent, you guys take a quarter of a cent. Capusa gets a quarter of a cent. So that's how you're able to break down those percentages. Doesn't sound like a lot, obviously, we're talking about millions of kilowatts, it adds up. That's where that $350,000 a year profit on a low estimate comes from. So, and then Capusa as well, and Capusa is Cayuga County. So when we create this partnership with other counties, we're calling it Take Charge. So Take Charge Cayuga, we form a Take Charge Onondaga. We're talking to them now too. Capusa is making money in Onondaga. They're making money in Oswego. So that's the beauty of this. As John mentioned, you're not stuck with the borders of Cayuga with Capusa. It really can go anywhere upstate. So it's exciting. It's a very exciting revenue generation, I think, for Cayuga in general. And there's even more opportunity there with all these properties.
I know Trish had a question. Go ahead, Trish.
Yeah, I was just wondering, we've been looking for years now, I think, for additional sites for our next industrial park. And this potential sites you outlined on the map, I noticed some of them were quite large. I think there was like a 1,200 acre up in the northern part of the county. And I'm just curious what level of coordination there is with our planning department as you're mapping these things out and making plans for looking at these sites for multiple purposes.
The one that I mentioned in the Weedsport area is my idea because we've been following with Onondaga, the micron situation. So I'm more familiar with that because, and that's why we kind of looked at the Cato Weedsport area as in close proximity for supply chain businesses that they're going to bring in. As far as the working with the county on these sites, and we go through the county online system to pick ones that we thought were not usable. We went over them in 2 meetings or 3 meetings with Capusa and Mark. I keep on talking Mark because he's always been in my face. We've done our best so far to pick sites that nobody would care about. And what we do, Bob, I don't know what's the next step of, do we go to the county planning board or what do you do? Or do we present those or whatever?
We're almost at the stage of coordinating with the county planning because they have home sites that's going to need power, and we can also help them with the carbon footprint would be an asset to Micron. So I could see that close. Talk with them what they have as far as their planning and their coordination for homes and available land.
Micron needs about 1.3 gigawatts of power. And that's a lot of power. But our first concern is the local community and the local businesses. And then if there's left over, then we can ship it to Micron.
So there hasn't yet been those conversations with our planning department. What about the Cayuga Economic Development Agency? Have you guys reached out and met with them yet?
Well, they were at our last presentation here, right? Here. I talked to Maureen 6-8 months ago, about this. So they're aware of what's going on, but we work with Bob.
We have a Micron committee that we meet once a month. But right now, everybody's in the information gathering stages and trying to plan out what the needs are. We're trying to find out what the needs are for Micron, what's available, and those meetings are coming soon.
I would just express my interest in seeing those conversations happen sooner than later so that we bring our own professional staff into some of these conversations.
For those that don't know, it's John Montone. He's an expert in energy and he lives right here in our county. So thank you, John.
Aileen has her hand up.
Aileen, we can't see you, but Aileen, go ahead.
Can you see me now?
We can.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make an addition here in listening to the conversation. I would like to be able to rely on regular updates from Capusa to go, again, related to what Trish is saying and the question she has. I didn't know about Acadia until you came to the last presentation. And I didn't really even know that was the focus for Capusa. So I think we could benefit from just opening the lines of communication a little better between the legislature and Capusa.
Bob, is that okay with you?
Sure.
Great point, Aileen. Thank you. Any other questions for John and Chris? We appreciate it very, very much. We'll be seeing you again, I'm sure, but we
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much.
John, we expect you're gonna move into our county, so we expect a little bit of break.
It's like, Bob does a good job of twisting my arm.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Proclamation. Bob Frame Day. Bob was a long time college employee up at the college. We presented plaque to him, presentation proclamation last week. Dave Pinkney just got out of the service, 25 years in the Army. So I presented a April as Donate Life Month. And whereas this observance pays tribute to organ and tissue donors and their families, meaningfully decision enables others to receive life-saving organs or tissue, whereby a transplant not only imposes the quality of life for the recipient, but in many cases can save a life. Whereas a single individual's donation of organs can save up to 8 lives, while a donation of tissue can enhance the lives of up to 75 others. And whereas there are nearly 9,700 men, women, and children waiting for an organ transplant in New York State, which represents the 3rd highest in the nation, there are approximately 400 New Yorkers that die every year while waiting for an organ transplant. And whereas only 40% of New York State residents are currently signed up to be an organ donor, eye and tissue donors, there are also tens of thousands of people nationwide in need of bone, corneal, and other tissue transplants, with names added to the waiting list each day. And whereas in Cayuga County, we now have 61% of eligible residents who have signed up to be a donor, a higher than average number due to promotional efforts by our local Department of Motor Vehicle office. Anyone can easily sign up to be a donor. Contact the DMV, contact Sue. There's some email addresses here, which I'll skip, but resolve that I, Dave Gould, Chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature, and fellow legislators do proclaim April 2023 as Donate Life Month in Cayuga County. And in doing so, we encourage all residents of Cayuga County to enroll as an organ and tissue donor at our local DMV office. So would you come up, please?
Staff,
Sure, absolutely.
take a picture. Would you mind being in the picture?
No, not at all.
Real quick. Sure. I am photographer. Yeah. How do you get in the middle?
So you gotta get in here, because I'm gonna give this to you. Thank you. Can you get everybody in, Steve?
I can get everybody and make sure, okay, everybody ready? One.
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
Got it?
Okay. Perfect.
Who would like to say a few words, so?
I know some people in here might have received an organ or given an organ, and thank you so much for that. We're going to have an organ, a person who received a lung that day. We're going to have a flag raising on Monday.
Like this coming month.
Have some activities. We're not going to do the popcorn, which we had to call the fire department, but we've got a lot going on. We have frog hats and things. This year is Make a Splash. And the DMV, all of the staff over there, they've been working very, very hard at it. And I'm very proud because we started around 30%. And after 16 years now, we're above the state percentage of how many people signed up. So we're 60%. I mean, that is just huge. And it's saving thousands of lives. So I'm very proud of you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thanks all. 9:30 Monday morning out front, right?
9:45.
9:45. If anybody can attend, it's raising the flag. So I have signed up, but I don't know who wants my organization.
Everybody does that, but you know, there's a lot they can use. There's a lot of valves and tissue and things like that.
Okay. Minutes to approve, February 28th. Second?
Second.
Any
Basile.
discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Communications and announcements. Any legislator have one? Okay, thank you. CCC report, Dr. Durant got a hold of me this morning. He is at the meeting with the state SUNY administration, so he won't be able to be here. Committee reports and individual legislative reports. Anybody have anything? No, all right. Chairman's report. I am going to skip it. It is late enough, so I will do one next week or next month, but I'm going to skip it tonight. There is the ethics board and the youth board. There's that's not voted on or no resolutions, just so you can see the names. Okay, we'll go right in. In fact, I'm going to name them just because these people deserve to be named. Dave Conley for the ethics board, and Alex Patty, and Robert Ryan for the youth board. And Deb's still here? You guys here? All right. Congratulations. Thank you for helping out. Thanks, Deb. You're doing a great job with that board. Thank you. Okay, let's get right into resolutions. Hans, Ways and Means.
Mr. Chairman, Ways and Means has 3 resolutions that have been through the committee and were approved, and I'd like to offer them as a bundle.
Move them.
Second.
No, wait. I would like to have resolution 323-3 pulled.
WM3, I can't hear you, Brad. WM3?
Yeah.
Okay. So bundle 1 and 2, motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion, 1 and 2? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? I'll read it. Authorizing the chair to enter into an agreement with Bond, Shinnick and King for the purposes of providing the county legal services in the human resource, civil service, and labor negotiations for the years 2023 through 2025.
I'll second it.
Wait, all right, so there's a second. Now you can discuss it.
Can I get a 5-minute caucus?
Sure. Go ahead. 5 minutes. Thank you. Hey, everybody, relax.
You guys want to,
Chairman?
yes, want to do what the kids are doing, you go car?
What? Who are they? I know Moravia girls, right? Moravia boys.
So do I. Yeah, I know, Ray, it's all about.
Nice to meet you. Great.
Moravia boys team.
They won.
Great job.
Mark, do you know what Union Springs, maybe Bobby knows?
Yeah. I know what I wanted to say.
We can.
workers and New York State. And they need to be awarded accordingly.
Thank you. I agree with you, but thank you. Okay, discussion, any other discussion?
Dave, right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that there are a couple of issues that are important for everybody to know about contracting this particular firm versus somebody in Cayuga County. Number one, there is not a firm in Cayuga County that is a labor firm. And this firm does more than our labor negotiations.
Right.
They also advise our civil service. They advise 24/7 our health, our human services, human resources department. We don't have a source in Cayuga County, as much as I too would like to see a Cayuga County attorney's firm be our resource for this. In addition to that, what we are paying them is less than what we would pay another full-time Cayuga County attorney with benefits.
Sure.
So the idea that we're bleeding the county is not fully accurate, is not pulled out. And if and when we can search and find that full service firm, because it cannot be handled by one person. We are representing 500 people, 4 unions, and the college, which is a similar amount of people and unions. It has to be held, it has to be responsibly done by a firm and not a singular attorney. So I say that with the same emphasis that Brian has on respecting our county, its employees, applauding them for remarkable kinds of work. And particularly right now, we're in negotiations, as we all know, with CSEA. And we have critical work that happens with those folks that we need to applaud because they don't make the newspapers. They're not making, they're not making the TV news for, egregious kinds of problems. I've talked with the department chair, the department head of DSS in the last couple of months because I wanted to know what our caseloads were like in that department. And they are at and under what the state standard is for best practices, which is beyond what has happened in other counties. So yeah, we need to applaud and we need to show that and recognize that monetarily in contract negotiations. And I guess I'm done, but I wanted to make sure that there's a real understanding about the conflict between what seems like easier solutions and the reality before us.
Brent.
Want to thank legislator Nightingale for taking the time to inform me of that information. That was crucial information. But I want to reiterate, I support our county workers and I would like to see this wrapped up soon. This is, they give us more than we give them.
Totally understand. We have a meeting with them again on Thursday, so hopefully we can make a lot of progress that day. And I agree 100% with you, with both of you. Okay, any other discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed. We have to go back to the first page, everyone. We were just told that we have to vote on the ethics board person, which is Dave Conley. He did not sign the book, so we have to vote on him again.
Second, the seal.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Hans? Opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Health and Human Services, Elaine.
Yep, Health and Human Services had 14 resolutions this month. They've been through both committees. And I offer them up as a bundle, HH1 through HH13, unless anyone wants any of them separated out.
Motion?
Hang on.
Okay.
3 and 7 again. Trust me, I'll make it quick.
Okay. So could we bundle HH1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13?
Nightingale, second.
Any discussion on any of those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Passed.
I'll bundle 3, or I'll ask for 3 and 7 to be bundled.
Okay.
Move it.
3 is authorizing the public health director to purchase a vehicle for the health department. And 7 is authorizing the Commissioner of Social Services to purchase 3 vehicles for the Department of Social Services. As, all those costs were in their 2023 budgets.
Go ahead.
Just because everyone wasn't here for Ways and Means. I'm assuming we moved it and seconded it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. These are our only vehicles that we get some money back from. So now that we have a voter pool, let's use it. Make sure we're not sending vehicles off to an auction that we should be doing in another department if they still have life to them. Because these, like I said, are the only ones that we get some reimbursement for. We had this discussion at Ways, but it seems not everyone was there. I wanted to bring the point up. I'm in favor of these, but we need to
Be smart about how
be
we.
smart about how we do it.
That's a very good point. Chris?
Mr. Chair, point of order, or maybe it's just clarifying something for me. Was there a second on this? We have a motion, a second, because we're discussing it.
Didn't we have a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on, I totally agree with Andy. We have a motor pool now that's up and running and I agree with that. We can save some money on used cars. That's what we should be doing. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, thank you. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Government Operations had one resolution this month. It is to fill a full-time records retention specialist due to resignation. I'll move it at this time.
Second.
Sorry.
Any discussion? What happened? Okay, a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, pass. Planning? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning has 5 resolutions went through committee. I'll entertain a motion to bundle unless somebody wants some singled out. Mark?
I'd like to separate PL 5.
Which one, Mark?
PL 5, please.
PL 5 separated out. I'll entertain a motion to bundle 1 through 4.
Second?
Basile.
Okay, discussion. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, passed. PL5, Bob?
PL 5 was authorizing the chair of the legislature to execute an agreement between Finger Lakes Institute and Cayuga County for implementation of the fiscal year 2023 Owasco Watershed Monitoring Program.
Discussion.
We gotta move it first.
Move it for discussion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Mark?
I will be voting no on this. And I've worked with Shireen and Bob on this issue, and I'm not satisfied with the answers I've been given. So at this point in time, I will vote no. That's it.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
Three. Got the names?
4,
Four?
5. Wait a minute. Keep your hands right. Okay.
And back up.
Five, I believe. 6.
Want a roll call?
Yeah, we better have a roll call.
We are, because she could not hear. So she got off. Okay. I'll start. Yep.
Jim Basile?
Yes.
Yeah,
Andy
wait a
Dennison?
minute. So as long as we're straight now, yes means
To pass the resolution.
pass it. Okay. As long as everybody's straight.
Andy Dennison?
No.
Lydia Patty Rafini?
No.
Chris Petrus?
No.
Aileen McNabb Coleman?
Aileen?
I think we lost her.
Yeah, she couldn't hear us. Bob Shay?
No.
Hans Petcher?
No.
Mark Strong?
No.
Heidi Nightingale?
Yes.
Lane Daly?
Yes.
Turn on back. No.
Trish Kerr?
Yes.
Christina Clarko?
Yes.
Michael Video's excused. Brian Muldrow?
Yes.
David Gould?
Yes.
It's defeated.
Okay, PL5 is defeated.
Oh, my God.
Okay, Public Works, Andy.
Public Works, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Had 5 resolutions. I went through both. Committees have passed. I offer them as a bundle unless somebody wants something separate.
Move it, Basile.
Second it, Mark.
Any discussion on any of them? All 5? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, hearing none, passed. Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judicial Public Safety has 11 resolutions tonight. I would offer JP 1 through 11 as a bundle. All were passed at committee unless someone was unseparated.
Megan, move it.
Second.
Second was Andy. Any discussion on any of them? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Yes, thank you. Ledge has 1 authorizing appointments to the various boards and agencies, and that's listed on the back of your sheet.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody, our full legislative meetings from now on will be at 5:30 until at least January. 3 things I want to talk about. The Moravia boys basketball team, Mark, could you say a few words?
If nobody doesn't know, the Moravia Boy High School basketball team made it to the Final Four of the state tournament. They were defeated in the first round.
Great job. That's a great job.
March Madness.
Bob, Union Springs girls.
Yes, we're very proud of the Union Springs Lady Wolves that compiled a record of 22-1, also going to the state semifinals. They're tenacious on defense and unselfish on offense, and they have a great season.
Wow.
And we love them to death. So,
You were the biggest cheerleader. Okay, just one more thing, everyone. Tim LaCastro, I know you, if you don't know him personally, you certainly know the name. He just found out that he's gonna be in the opening roster for the Mets coming up. So a local kid makes it really big, so.
Sorry, I'm still a Yankees fan.
Yeah, me too.
Years ago, we had a Tim LaCastro day. He was a young upstart just coming out of college, and it was nice that we had him for Student Government Day. Hopefully, we can have some more examples that day. Maybe you can get something going.
Thank you, Tim. Bobby?
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. I think people should be recognized for doing a good job. As far as the health department, under the direction of Kathleen Cuddy, recently Nancy Purdy, who was the Director of Community Health Services, a division of and Director of Nursing and Preventative Services, was featured on the New York State Department of Health Works website for a job well done during the years 21 and 22. She booked out already, but I just want to say shout out to those individuals for doing a great job for our county. And shouting out, we appreciate them and we let them know.
Thank you, Rob, very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second to adjourn. Move it. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. I know it lasted a little bit, but thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?